Hi everybody, how y'all doing? It's Steve again. And for those of you who've been following me, as you know, I talk about things like pop culture, the culture war, sometimes politics, sports, and entertainment. And so today, we're going to discuss entertainment. I was reading something, just blew my mind, and it really kind of ties into both, not just entertainment, but politics and the culture war that's taking place right now. They've really converged over the last few years quite a bit. It's just funny to me how the things work out. But it involves Daisy Ridley, who is the star of the new Disney trilogy. I won't call it Star Wars trilogy because there's very little Star Wars about the new Disney trilogy that Disney's putting out for Star Wars. She's the new super Jedi, basically, Rey. And she did an interview, I think, about a week ago with The Guardian, which is a newspaper in London, and covered a couple of topics that I wanted to kind of discuss with you guys. That just really proves to me she, like a lot of entitled Hollywood types, is really not that bright. First thing in the interview she discussed was about privilege, and the interviewer basically asked her if she thought her background, which basically she comes from a fairly well-to-do family. Her grandfather used to be an executive engineer for the BBC. Her family sent her to a private boarding school for acting, and the interview was basically, in essence, asking her, does she think her privilege allowed her certain advantages that maybe others like her didn't have, fellow actors like her didn't have. So, a lot of people I've seen messing this up on YouTube that discussed the story recently, and they're conflating privilege with race. And the interviewer, to my knowledge, I don't remember seeing anything where the interviewer asked her about race. It was about her upbringing and how maybe she had certain advantages, certain privileges in her upbringing that others didn't have. And if she thinks that helped make a difference for her. I've heard everything from, this the SJWs, and it's about her being a white woman, to, they're saying that because she comes from a privileged background, she didn't work hard. And that is not what I got from the question. Although it was kind of an SJW type question, what I basically got from the question was, do you think your background and your upbringing, coming from a family who had connections, in entertainment, who had money, do you think that helped give you a little bit of a leg up as opposed to some of your other, contemporaries? That's what I got from the question. And the truth of the matter is, it did. If that's just common sense. If you come from money and I don't come from money, you're going to have certain advantages that I don't have because of your status. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just how it is. But she turned around and said, she got kind of defensive. And what do you mean privilege? I don't think so. I'm not privileged. I think me and John Boyega, who plays Finn, the black guy in the new Disney trilogy, she said, I think me and John have very similar upbringings. Well, no, for this reason. In the interview, she mentions that, John grew up in Council Estate, a Council Estate neighborhood, and she grew up in a neighborhood where her family sent her to boarding school. I lived in England for 5 years. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Council Estate housing is just a fancy way to say government housing. That's really all it is. It's government housing for low-income individuals. That's what council housing is. That's what it means. Council estate means government housing. So John Boyega grew up in government housing because he was born to parents who are Nigerian immigrants. He grew up in government housing, and according to the story, he also had to apply for hardship loans to get into acting school. So now Miss Ridley, Daisy, she grew up in an upper middle class to somewhat affluent neighborhood, Her parents sent her to boarding school, and there are some stories that say that she got a scholarship for that. Maybe. I haven't seen any verification of that, but it's neither here nor there. She went to boarding school, a private boarding school, to study acting for years. And she lands one of the biggest roles you could ever land as an actor or actress in Hollywood, which is starring in a Star Wars film. But to conflate her upbringing with John's is just not the case. John Boyega grew up poor. Daisy Ridley did not. They are not the same. And there's a certain privilege that comes along with not growing up poor that poor people don't have growing up. She could have answered that question much better. I don't understand why people are so, defensive about their privilege. She could have easily just have said something along the lines of, you know what, I had certain advantages and I took advantage of those. I had certain opportunities. I took advantage of those opportunities that I had growing up. I'm really happy for John. He's done so well, and he's such a great actor, and he deserves every success that comes his way. That would have probably been the proper way to answer that question. But no, she couldn't do that. She had to turn around and say, well, no, John and I grew up pretty much the same. No, you didn't. Daisy, you didn't. I'm sorry. And only somebody who's not grown up poor would answer a question that way. It's just how it is. As someone who grew up in government housing, spent my childhood in government housing, I can promise you, you didn't grow up like we did. Now, that was the first stupid thing she said. The second stupid thing she said was when the interviewer asked her if she felt like she couldn't answer any questions of the studio, if Disney had put any constraints on what they could say. And she said, no, I've been very free to say what I want. I have the same, likes that everybody else has. I like the same things everybody else does. I have the same dislikes everybody else does. Everybody, dislikes Boris Johnson, who's the Prime Minister of England, and the truth is, not everybody, because he got voted in. But she's saying, basically, her basic premise was everybody dislikes Boris J. She said everybody dislikes Trump, and here's the caveat. She says, well, everybody sane anyway dislikes Trump. So then she turns around, and in that same interview, from what I read, it looked like the same interview. She turns around and she insults 63 million people in the process. She's got a movie coming out in less than a week, and she insults 63 million people who voted for Trump. And so insinuating that basically anybody who voted for him must be insane. Daisy, 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 Daisy. That's just not how you do it. And, I really can't blame her, because I don't think many Hollywood people are that bright anyway. I think most of them are kind of dumb, to be honest. I mean, they read other people's lines. They're real good at that. But I've met some. I've seen a few. I've seen them on television. There's very little going on below the surface. The grass is about 2 inches deep, and that's about it, if you know what I'm saying. But I blame Disney for this. Disney, you got a movie coming out in 2 weeks. Why don't you just tell their people to keep it about the movie? But no, Disney's been doing this since The Last Jedi. Let's troll the fans. We can say what we want. Girl power. If you don't like it, that means you're a misogynist, racist, istis, Mr. whatever. Disney's been doing this for years and allowing this kind of stuff for years, because I guess they have a formula that says we can talk crap about the fans whenever we want. They're still going to give us their money. Okay. I thought it was stupid, but who am I? I'm just a guy who is not going to go see Star Wars now. That's who I am. I have no interest in seeing the movie. With all the leaks I've heard about it, it sounds like it's going to be terrible anyway, so they can miss me. I'll catch up on YouTube. I'm sure one of the other YouTubers who decides to go see it or hate watch it or whatever will talk about it. I'll get my fill from that. But as far as me paying to see it, nah, it's not going to happen. Somebody gives me a ticket, I might go check it out. But my own money, no, it's not happening. So with that, Daisy, you're young, I'll give you some really good advice. When you're promoting a movie, just talk about the movie. Just talk about the movie and keep it upbeat. Just keep it upbeat. With that, guys, I appreciate your time. If you like the channel, please subscribe. Hit like on there. Click that notification bell and share the channel, please. I'd love to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year. 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Can definitely do it. I appreciate all the help you guys can offer. Thanks so much again for listening. We'll talk to you later. Take care.